pretty Halloween-y right now.
I think
pretty
so.
Spooktobery. We both have a mouthful of chocolate.
Yeah. We're both just finished eating our chocolate.
I have an orange shirt on.
You do? Like a weird light outside?
It looks a little spooky.
A little spooky, yeah.
The leaves are changing colors.
Yeah, it feels
They're all
very...
falling down.
It's very fall right now, and I'm excited about it.
Well, then we should talk about a very, very fall movie. No, wait, it's not at all.
No.
Yeah, it's quite summertime in this.
It does. Yeah, I guess. It's like wedding season, I assume. So.
Yeah, but it's our Halloween episode, 1 of 4, so it's spooky for us.
Spooky.
There you go. Well, welcome to a very spooky episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Indy, fun-sized chocolate bar Randhawa, and with me is my lovely co-host Samantha, pumpkin spice latte Randhawa.
That's me. I was excited. I didn't go into my office today, but I'm excited to take my Halloween desk decorations to work with me.
I just decorate myself for work.
I bought some like really cute little things at the dollar store a couple years ago, and I haven't had a desk to put them on in a few years, so I'm excited to take them back to work.
Well, dollar stores are a scourge upon our nation.
Oh.
But we're not going to get into that.
Oh. On that note.
They're bad in so many ways.
Yeah.
Not just like cheap products, but because of that, then people get away with not putting proper grocery stores. So then it just makes people who are of lower income eat food, which they think they're getting at a discount. And it's not always the case,
Yeah.
but it's usually less nutritious. But that's kind of related because we're going to talk about class warfare, because that's my takeaway from this movie. And this movie is Ready or Not, the 2019 comedic thriller horror, survivor horror, I think.
Survival horror movie?
Yeah, all
Dark
of those.
Comedy horror film?
Sure.
Sure.
So this was Samantha's pick because she thought I had never seen it, but in reality we did see it together, but
Yes.
you forgot.
I forgot.
And you forgot our conversations back then too.
I really did.
So we get to do it all over again, and this time it counts because it's recorded.
Exactly.
So you have seen it a few times now.
Yes.
Still holds up for you?
Oh, it's still held up for me. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was like super fun, super funny, didn't take itself too seriously, and it hit all of those like tropes that I know about from like horror movies that I thought were done in a really good way. What about you?
I remembered liking it when we saw it in the theaters. I liked it quite a bit, but this time through, yeah, I liked it even more.
Yeah.
I think it's great. There's a lot more to it than maybe I realized the first time.
Mm-hmm.
You know how so often when you pick a movie, in the first 10 minutes, I go like, is this satire?
Mm-hmm.
This, for
It's
the first
satire.
time, the
It's
answer would be
100% satire.
Yes, it is.
And that's one of the really charming things about this is that it knows it's satire, and it's like, no, we're going to be the most satire-y satire.
I disagree with that.
Oh.
I think there's so much further they could go, but I'm not saying that they didn't go far enough. It was clear that they have those elements, but I think this movie only works if you know other movies of the type.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess if you're doing anything that's playing on tropes and doing a satirical reading of things that are already established, you kind of need to have that establishment. But
Yeah.
luckily we do. Hopefully our audience does as well. Because we aren't just going to say, here's the plot of the movie, it was good. We're going to do a bit of analysis. So it is a spoiler zone.
Mm-hmm.
And let's get into it, I guess.
Let's do it.
Because this is a movie where I feel like a lot of our interests overlap.
Yes.
From the movies you tend to pick, this has two things that are in, I would say, 90% of the movies you choose,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful blonde female protagonist and a rich family.
Yes.
And it has things that I really like playing on popular conventions and the rich family losing.
Yes.
Usually in your picks, the rich family's the heroes, but not so much in this one.
Yeah, this one, I think it's a fun twist.
Well, I guess there's a lot of ways we can go through this. This movie has a big cast, like a lot of those mysteries kind of Agatha Christie in that way. Maybe we should start off by going through a few of the characters and starting off with the smaller ones, and then going into our main characters and the whole main plot and what we found so effective in this movie.
Sounds good.
Who's a side character that you'd like to start with?
Well, I want to go Daniel first.
Okay, so I guess say
he's not that side character-y.
Sure, let's talk. He's played by Adam
Brody, who is fantastic, and I think he does a really good job of this role. I really enjoyed his addition. Part of me kind of wishes that he was the brother who was getting married, just because he's more charming than the guy who played Alex.
True, but I think the role he plays and how he did it wouldn't work in Alex's role. Because Alex needs to be more torn between those extremes. And I think what Brody does so well in this performance is Daniel is this kind of weary, jaded, disaffected kind of guy. Because I think all of these characters in the Ladomas family.
Yes.
Right? All of the family members seem to have a character that is, I don't want to say stereotypical, but because it's not that typical, but it's things we have seen in other movies, and they each kind of represent part of the downside or the negative aspects of these rich, entitled families. Like, he is someone who has I think he's mentioned that he's an alcoholic, whether it actually is or he just...
It's mentioned multiple times.
So yeah, he probably is. But either way, he is someone who is seen as kind of not living up to responsibilities. And you could say that his alcoholism could be a turn because of dealing with the actual malevolent murder part of the family, or just because of the pressures of being in this kind of family, knowing that he doesn't really fit in. But he's also someone who benefits from this system so much that he's kind of unwilling to change it.
Yes. And he has that self-hatred of the fact that he's unwilling to change it, it seems like.
Yeah. And of course, in this movie, my big thesis, and I don't think I'm taking a big swing here, is that the movie has a family who is literally sacrificing people to the devil, and they are literal evil in every sort of way. And the movie is just drawing parallels between this family and their deal with the devil, and how wealthy families or corporations or whatever it is, their deal with the devil is the exploitation of others. And in this family, they are literally murdering people. And that makes you, in your mind, connect wealth and success with the exploitation of people who maybe not literally murdered, although sometimes that is true too, literally. But taken advantage of, whether it's being underpaid or any number of ways. So that's my takeaway from it. I think that's pretty clear. Pretty fair. Yeah. And Daniel is a really fun character because, first of all, the performance, I think. Fantastic. I like Adam Brody a lot.
I love him. I just watched him in something else this week, and I'm just so excited to get to watch him in two very different roles.
Does he have similar mannerisms? Because I haven't really seen him play someone so different from this.
So he is a very good comedic person. I've seen him in a lot more comedy than I have in something like this, but he's a good, light, funny guy. Yeah. Kind of nerdy. So the thing that I saw him in was a romantic comedy, and he plays a rabbi. And I think it's just kind of the opposite of the character that he plays in this movie as Daniel. And I think he's got a great range as an actor.
Oh.
Yeah.
That I wasn't aware of. I like him, but when I see him, I've only seen him in a few things. He's kind of playing who I assume Adam Brody is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is my second favorite character of the movie. And I just like that the idea of someone who benefits from a system. They don't want to be a part of it, but they're but the benefits are worth it, and they just kind of numb themselves and go along for the ride.
Yeah, and you can feel that stuckness, I guess, because, well, spoiler, they've the family him coming into the world made a literal deal with the devil. So he's kind of stuck in that way too.
But does he believe that? I got the impression that most of the people in this movie don't believe that they would actually die.
Yeah. I think they believe enough that they're going to go through with it, but there is that like lingering doubt.
Because for his character, it felt more to me like he was doing it because of familial pressure rather than for his like self-preservation. I don't think he was worried about, oh, the devil's going to make me explode.
Right.
I think he thought that he needs to do this for his family and to maintain the wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
It really only felt like the father was, and maybe the Aunt Helene were the ones that really believed that, hey, we will die if this doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, maybe we should talk a little bit about Aunt Helene. Smaller character, but a lot of fun. I liked how she appears early on, and her appearance lets me know that, oh, this movie is intentionally humorous and over the top.
Yeah. And the look that they give her and the way that they light her is just like so perfect for the spooky old aunt. And as the story progresses, you kind of learn a little bit about her, and you learn that she's the last person whose spouse was killed in this ritual. And so then you kind of get an idea of why she's so like grumpy and cross with everybody.
But you'd think then she would be on Grace's side, but that's not the case.
No.
She kind of has that old school mentality that we hear a lot of, like, well, I had it hard, so now you have
to like suffer as well.
It's not like it's going to be better for you. It's bad for me. Now it's going to be bad for you. I'm just passing it along.
Oh, nothing like generational badness.
Yeah. Which is kind of what this movie's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I really loved her whole look. I loved her like facial expressions. I love how like she kept sneaking up on people in the mirror, and like being just like real spooky.
And they did a Nosferatu shot of her because she already looks kind of like a vampire.
Yeah.
So when they opened the blinds towards the end of the movie, it was the shot from Nosferatu, but with her.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was pretty great. And I loved how everyone else took like a gun or something. And she had just like a what do you call that?
An axe?
An axe? Big. I thought because it had a longer handle, it had a different name, but.
Oh, maybe.
But I just love that she had such an old school like instrument, and that she beheaded one of the maids with it because she kept interrupting her with her like dying groans.
Right. What weapon would you have gone with out of these ones?
I think crossbow. Never shot a crossbow. Never held a crossbow. Kind of seems like it would be fun.
Yeah, if I had to murder and it were these choices and the person was unarmed, I might go axe as well. I feel like I'm not going to miss.
True.
You know, with the crossbow, you miss. I don't think I'm quick at reloading that. With a bow and arrow, I'm much faster. Crossbow.
True. Oh, yeah. I forgot that Andie MacDowell had a bow and arrow.
Did she?
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of forgot that too.
Yeah. I think maybe I'd go bow and arrow over crossbow then, because I think that would
just go axe.
Easier.
You can just swing away.
True. Yeah. And a long-handled axe, you don't even have to get that close.
There you go. Well, let's talk about Andie MacDowell's character, whose name is...
Becky. Doesn't seem like a Becky.
No, but she's from the outside world,
She's
right?
She's
married in, and I guess she still sees that outside world and knows where Grace is coming from. And she has that nice speech with her at the beginning before we know how evil everything is. And now she has become a part of it where she still sees the outside world and has like maybe not a foot out there, but a finger. But she's so far in it now that she's not turning back. This is her life. She's one of the family.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked her little moments of motherliness, I guess, if you would call it that. And that you could tell she kind of felt for Alex as he was having to go through this, and like she didn't like that she had to put her son through it, but it was very much like it's for the family and this is kind of just what we do. And I enjoyed just her whole everybody had a really good look in this movie, and everyone had a different look, and I really liked it. I thought the costuming and the like hair and makeup was like really great for everybody, just because it was like everybody had a different kind of aura.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest benefits when you write a script where people are caricatures. And usually I'm saying that as a negative, but here I think it's done with great intent and to great success too. And when you can really lean into those things, you can get wilder with the costume design. And I think this is a good example of that, where not everyone seems like that's a crazy thing to wear. They seem like they could be part of our world too, but everything is heightened into what that specific person is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Outside of maybe Aunt Helene, she seems a little too wild for our world. But although I would see someone like that at the theater and be like, yeah, that checks out. That's an old theater lady.
Oh, for sure. I also feel like the longer that these people are in the family, the crazier, more out of touch and crazy they are,
which is absolutely real. Because, well, we say that that these people would stand out a little bit in our world, not as much as any actual very wealthy person does.
Yeah,
because they are completely out of touch with humanity.
True.
That's what my go-to answer is for giant celebrities who have become bad actors who once were. It's just like, well, they have no touch anymore.
They have no ability to understand what people are like.
Because they have never met a person who is not serving them in like 20 years. So I don't think Nick Cage has seen the human emotions of another human in 20 years.
That's why he's so off his rocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Interesting. From Andie MacDowell or Becky, we need to talk about Charity, I think, because Charity is also someone who married in, and you can tell through her time that we see her on screen that she is trying so hard to be like her mother-in-law.
She wants to be part of the family, and she says straight up that I can't go back. I would rather die than go back to where I came from.
And you can tell that she wants to be in this family more than Daniel does. And,
oh, for sure.
And you can tell just by the way she's dressed and the way she looks that she is trying so hard to like emulate her mother-in-law and to like look the part of the family that, you can see that she like desperately wants to be in. And
And that's often the case, too. I don't want to bring up certain rich families because then we'll just get off into a big tangent about me hating them. But oftentimes someone who has married in is the most gung-ho because she also probably feels like she could be cast out at any moment, right? And she's not going back because she's someone who actually knows what the real world is like. And apparently it wasn't good for her, so she's willing to do anything.
Yeah.
And she's willing to exploit or to kill anyone to maintain the privilege she has.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can kind of see how easy to like tick off Becky is by how she treats Fitch. And she at one point actually says, like, you know I hate you, right? Like her son-in-law. And I think it's really interesting because you can see Charity seeing all of that and then trying to like up her game to be even more perfect.
Charity is married to Daniel.
Adam Brody.
Yeah. And then we have Fitch.
Yes.
Who is
married to Emily. Yeah. Fitch is like, he seems like a lovable loser, kind of. Like in any other family, he'd be like, one of the gang. But in this family, he's just like too normal.
He just goes along with whatever. And for him, it doesn't need to be much. He says, like, I'm never going to fly a commercial again. And he's willing to murder for that. Yeah. Which also kind of gives us those notes of people who are in this position will do whatever they need to do to maintain that position, even if it's not for the life or death thing. Because I don't think he believes in the life or death at all.
No, I don't think so.
He is quite willing to murder people so he can fly private.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you got his wife, Emily, who is Alex and Daniel's sister. And she's a fun caricature too because she's like the coked up rich girl.
She's, outside of Daniel, maybe my favorite performance.
Yeah.
I liked her very much. And she's kind of representative of that, this ignorance of the outside world, this lack of empathy for others. She's, like you said, doing coke all the time, and some other things too.
And some other things.
Because has no notion of the outside world, and this is just what she needs to do to get through the day. And she's also trying to impress her parents a bit.
Yes.
And to great comedic effect.
Yeah. Some of her asides are really funny. Like, no more fuck ups. And like, just like, it's just really funny to see her trying to like give herself a pep talk and then like being a total daddy's girl when she does screw up.
Yeah.
And I also think it's very funny that they gave her like the little tiny gun, the little baby gun, because she's like kind of useless in the grand scheme of people who are going to shoot someone.
She kills the most people.
She really does, yeah.
And that's another thing, that they kill 3 servants?
3 maids,
close?
yeah.
And she kills 2 of them.
Yes.
And it's just a throwaway joke. And with a lot of movies, I'd be like, of course, when they kill the servants, it's just a throwaway joke. And complain about it. But in here, again, it's done with a lot of intent, because this family sees servants as completely disposable, just like the wealthy see other people, right? These are disposable people. I don't know their names. Moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
And for the family, is it just the father left, Tony?
Yeah, I believe so. So we got matriarch Tony Ladomas and
Patriarch?
Patriarch? What did I say?
Matriarch.
Oh, I guess that would be Becky. Yeah. So the patriarch, Tony, and I thought he did a really good job, because he does seem like any guy that you would see if you looked up like heir to blank.
Yeah, he's kind of the apex of this privilege and entitlement, and he both comes from the world of course, they're all from inherited wealth, but he has a more, corporate facade to him.
Right, yeah. Like
it is very much about the family, but also he seems like a CEO as much as a patriarch.
Yes, and he seems like the only one who's actually really worked, it seems like. And he does say that, like, yeah, we've moved into like owning professional sports teams, and like, so he's actually done some work for the fortune, whereas all of his kids seem like that generation where they like never had to work and never really thought about it.
Yeah, and the more you look into the owner of your favorite sports team, the sadder it gets.
Yeah.
I know a lot about that end of things, and yeah, they're almost all terrible.
Yeah.
And he just goes to be one of those people to show you that the more wealth he has, the more removed he is, and the less empathy he has for others.
Yeah. Yeah. What about Stevens, the butler?
What about him?
Well, I just liked how he was like very clearly more than a butler, because he was everywhere. And I just like that he was like so enthralled by that song throughout his entire like time in the movie. And that he like really understood and was like willing to do whatever he needed to do for the Ladomas. And is it ever confirmed that he isn't part of their like deal with the devil? Do we ever see?
I don't know. I kind of took his character as, like you were saying, willing to do whatever, as someone who is from like our world, willing to do whatever they can, even through servitude or through anything, to be part of the elite. Right. And he, of course, never will be. They will never allow him to be. They will use him and dispose of him just like all of the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like they did in the movie.
And then there's Alex.
Yes.
Who actually gets some characterization. And overall, I would say this movie, of course, is not a character piece. That's not what it's about. But for the amount of character stuff we get, it's used very effectively and efficiently. And I do feel like 3 characters have a bit of an arc to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like he was a bit forgettable. Like, I feel like they could have done a little bit more with this role, but it wasn't about him, I guess.
True.
Like, it's about him because it's a movie about him, but not really. So it is okay that he is just like a little bit more forgettable. And I think that the longer he's with his family, the less he cares about Grace.
It seems that way. It seems like he is kind of representative of an internal conflict of having privilege, of not wanting to disappoint your family, but also wanting the benefits of that, but wanting both.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he can't have both, and he chooses.
Yeah. And you can kind of see him slipping away from Grace and then realizing that, oh, maybe this is true, and then is like willing to kill his new wife to make sure that his family doesn't die.
Yeah, when Alex turns on Grace, it is complicated, I think. It doesn't seem to me, at least, that there was one thing that happened and now he's changed. Because he had been trying to save her this entire time. But towards the end of the movie, he turns. Why do you think? What causes that turn?
I was thinking about this because I don't really... I think it's his brother dying and realizing that he doesn't want any more of his family to die, maybe?
Oh, so you think he believes in that they will actually die?
I think, yes. And I think that he comes from a place where I don't know that like a lot of people have died in his life, and seeing someone real die, like his brother, kind of like jars him awake and makes him realize that like, oh no, I don't want anyone else to die. Maybe.
I never thought that he believed in the death, that they would die if... Because I don't even know, does it use the word that you will all die, or does it say that they will fall or something like that?
So
I don't recall.
They do make like reference to imploding and like exploding. There's like a few moments in the movie where they do say like, well, I don't want to explode. Do you want to explode? Like,
no, I don't remember.
There was like a couple moments where they mention what might happen. It's very like vague and like you don't really know, but like, and like they don't really know, but...
Because I assumed he thought that this was all metaphorical, and if they were to implode or crumble or fall or whatever it was more meaning the family.
Right.
Like not you would actually die, but your empire would fall.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning of the movie, that's kind of how they frame it before you know that this is like, there's a deal with the devil happening.
Yeah, and even that reveal comes quite late.
Yeah.
There's, of course, a bunch of hints that make you think that, like, what's his name? Mr.
LaBelle?
Which I guess is an anagram for Belial? Maybe
Yes.
that's why.
Yeah.
That's just a guess. I thought that was something.
No,
but
it is. I read something about that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you read anything about La Domas? Because I don't get that.
No.
And it seems like a choice.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like
it's not
Smith.
like, yeah, or, you know, any fancy last name in the US.
Yeah, it's one that I hadn't heard before, so I thought it must have been a reference to something, but I couldn't think of what it could be.
Yeah. I didn't read anything about that. I did read about LaBelle, though.
Okay. Well, that reveal comes late, and to me, it only seemed like two of the family actually believed they would die now.
Yeah.
And I didn't think he was one of them, because he never gave me a reason to think that. Because he sees Daniel die.
Yeah.
And he could think that Grace killed him.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's just laying there on the floor. Why would he think that? Who was it that actually killed him? The sister? Either way, he got shot by someone else, not Grace.
Right.
He died saving Grace.
Mm-hmm.
Saving Grace. But Alex doesn't know that. But what Alex does see is Grace beat his mother to death.
Yes. Which was like so shocking.
Yeah, it was like brutally done.
Yeah.
It wasn't...
But it's like she had to snap at some point, and I really like the way that they did it.
Yeah.
It was brutal, but like, yeah, there's only so much being hunted by your new family that you can take before you snap.
I think that's a fair.
Yeah.
But I think it's not just as simple as like, hey, you killed my brother and my mother, so now I'm going to turn on you. I think it also might be wrapped up in her corruption in his eyes, because he talks about her as being different. Like, you're one of the good ones. We see her wearing all white. Her name is Grace. It's all about being good and righteous and pure. And he wants to get away from his family, who is corrupt and literally murderous, right? Yeah. And now he sees her becoming those things. So maybe he is now going like, well, if you're just another one of them, then what's the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
And of course he's incorrect in that, but I like that he has a turn like that in the end. Because if he had been just apologetic at the end, I would be like, no, that's bullshit. Fuck this guy. He put her in that situation knowing that this was a possibility.
Yeah.
He could have helped her more in the beginning than he did, but he did not. So I would have had a real problem if the movie had him help her escape and then they escape and live happily ever after. Yeah. Because he's a bad guy. He put her in that position. This. And we do have him trying for a lot of the movie to help, but you wouldn't have had to have done that if you didn't bring her there.
Yeah, like why would you do that? I enjoyed her reaction to him at the end as his family's imploding, and she's like lost it at that point. And is no longer like speaking words, but she just like did such a good job of like keeping him away from her, and he continuously doesn't seem to understand that all of this is like too much and that everything that she's been through is like serious and affected her. And I thought that it was a interesting way to end the movie because he didn't really seem to get it until he exploded. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but yeah.
Well, I guess then we just have to talk about Grace.
Yeah.
Played by Samara Weaving, who I didn't really know. She was in that movie The Babysitter, which a lot of people really hated and I liked. Oh. But I think they also didn't realize that it was a satirical horror movie.
It wasn't serious.
Yeah. That one is funny as well.
Yeah.
And she's great.
I really like her.
She's fantastic.
I remember being like interested in this movie, I guess, when it was coming out because it was kind of geared towards people like me. And I followed her from something else and I can't remember what it was on Instagram. And I remember seeing her doing press for this movie. And I was just like, she's so fantastic. Like, I really like her when she's not acting too. And I think that she's like just kind of fun. And I think she needs to be in more things because she did a really good job.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else she's been in, but the two things I've seen were both comedic horror movies, and I thought she was very good in both.
Yeah.
I liked this character a lot because we have this, the trope of the final girl so much about someone who is innocent and then becomes a resourceful, empowered survivor. But it seems so much more earned in this one because it also adds to those layers of privilege as well as agency and autonomy because the family is always just doing like, this is what we have to do. This is tradition.
Yeah.
And there are some people who seem to like relish that a little more than others, but that is the reason. And she's the only person that, of course, all she's trying to do is survive for the vast majority of the movie. But she's the only one who gets to, you know, act on her own free will. She's not struggling with what other people think of me. And there is that because it's balanced at the beginning because she doesn't have a family of her own and seemingly wants to fit into this family as much as marry a man she loves. Like they're in love, but the movie doesn't spend a lot of time on their relationship. It spends almost as much time with Grace saying how she wants to be part of the family or people giving her advice or / warning her about being part of this family. So the family seems to be as big a part as the marriage. But rather than going along with these traditions, she is the one who is set up metaphorically and literally to oppose them. And we get this shot of her at the very beginning. She's in her white dress and she's smoking a cigarette, which is already saying like, oh, she's like playing by her own rules a little bit.
Yeah.
But then her soon-to-be husband comes in, and we don't have the scene of every movie of, no, you can't see me like this. They just hang out and they talk.
Yeah.
And it sets her up right at the beginning as someone who is not going to go blindly along with traditions for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's setting her up as someone who, although willing to do things to fit in, is ultimately her own person.
Yeah, and I enjoyed her little moments of like normalcy, I guess. Like, this is all happening. I guess the horror part of this movie starts at midnight with the game of hide and seek, and you can see her that she's been probably drinking all day. It's a wedding, like they've had stuff and then they're having a drink in the room before hide and seek starts and that kind of thing. So when she's walking down the hallway trying to like go and find her hiding spot, you get this moment of her like tiptoeing, but in like a really funny way because she's drunk and she's trying to like act normal. And she has a few of those moments throughout the movie, and I like them because they're silly, and she does such a good job of doing that, I guess, being that person.
In the small amount of time she has before she's just fighting for her life, she makes great use of that to be endearing. In so many movies like this, I almost don't want a character I love to be the final girl, because it's usually about them being terrorized and screaming and crying, and then they get to survive at the end, and then they sob as they drive away in the vehicle or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that we got the amount of time with her at the beginning, although still not a lot, but it was enough.
It was enough. You got her.
I wanted more, but it was enough to make me like her.
Yeah.
And to think that she was a fun, likable person.
Yes, absolutely. And I like that in movies like this, there is oftentimes like they kind of forget how a normal person would react to things happening in a horror movie. And you don't get those like real life reactions. And I think that Grace has reactions that someone would have if they're being hunted by their new in-laws and then like having to kill people to like save their own lives, and then having everyone that she's in a house with implode. Like, and it's just like one thing on top of another, and she just like is having like a real human reaction to this stuff. Not that that would actually happen to someone, but like it like she's real, and I really liked that about her.
She takes her time before she's a badass killer. Like in a lot of movies, you go from victim to hero in one scene.
Yeah.
They go, okay, now's my chance. And that wasn't the case here, because when she first finds out about what is going on, she can't speak.
No,
and
she's shaking. She's crying.
Sense. Yeah.
She's like having a panic, and that's totally fair.
And then she gets to the point where she has a weapon and she tries to kill someone, and she's incapable of it. And of course, in this, it was that the ammunition was fake.
Yeah.
But that's she couldn't do it.
Right.
And they're mixing the literal and the metaphorical a lot in this movie. So I'm going to put that as part of the character growth. And then she finally gets going, and it's a while before we get that hero shot of her with the bandolier and the dress and everything. And I loved it. I love a good hero shot. And that was one of my favorites that I've seen recently.
Yeah, I liked that one. And her sitting on the steps at the end as like the house is burning down behind her, and EMTs are trying to run up to her and like talk to her, and she's just totally like in shock and out of it. And you get like the chaos around her as she sits and just like smokes her cigarette.
And her dress, because I know you like to talk costume.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on the style of the dress before I start talking about it?
I thought it was a smart style to pick for this. I think doing all of this in like a full corset would be really hard. I think it was just floofy enough to give like bride, and just like small enough to make it seem like she could wear it in this crazy situation all night without having to change at all. And I thought it kind of was like the perfect dress for her for this moment. What about you?
at the beginning, everything is perfect,
Yes.
right? It's a
Yeah.
perfect house. It's a perfect dress. She's a perfect bride. And of course, she's wearing white and it signifies purity and innocence and all of that sort of stuff. And then when she starts the game, the first thing to happen is the house rips her dress.
Mm-hmm.
And the house, maybe we'll talk about a little more, is of course is representative of the family.
Yes.
They are manifested in that way. This represents everything they've built up because it's literally been built up, and everything that's going to go up in flames because that's exactly what happens there. Mm-hmm. So the house rips her dress a little bit, and that's kind of a little bit of foreshadowing that the family is coming after her. And then as she hides, it gets gray and dirty, culminating when she falls into the pit, I guess.
Yeah.
With all the bodies. And when she's coming out of there, it is all just gray and dirty. And there she's coming from nothing. She's literally coming up from the grave. One of the parts that was the most stressful, because you see that nail up
oh my
there.
God.
And she'd already torn her dress on a nail too. Mm-hmm. And you see that nail there and you're like, oh, it's going to happen, isn't it? It's going to happen. And then when it happens intentionally, like she's putting that hole in her hand over that nail to pull herself up. I don't think it's too far of a reach to say that it's very Christ-like. She's resurrecting from the grave and then is crucified and resurrects herself.
Yeah.
That's was a pretty great scene. And then she's all dirty, and that's the first level. And then at the end, she gets covered in blood and the dress is all red. So we get to see her as this perfect, innocent bride, as someone who is dirty and left for dead, to someone who is blood splattered and has conquered this family. And I think the dress is a great symbol that they use throughout. It's very much like Die Hard. I don't know if they did it so intentionally, but it kind of seems like they did, because in that, John McClane, Bruce Willis, has a white tank top, and then he's hiding from the terrorists, and it's all gray and dirty, and then they even switch it for a green one. Even though it's supposed to be the same one, it's just showing that now he's kind of a soldier. And then later on, it's white, but with blood splatters. And that's what we get here, too. She's our John McClane.
Huh.
There's a good bit of Die Hard in this movie.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah, she was just fantastic. And I think that she should be working more. I want to see her in more things.
Well, I was talking about the house being representative of the family, and they get you there right at the beginning because there's this dolly shot, and the camera isn't on tracks very often in this movie at all.
No.
There's a lot of handheld stuff, but they have this one shot that goes through all of the people at the beginning of the wedding, and you're like, oh, who's it gonna end up on? Who is the mastermind behind all of this? And then it goes through all of the family members and just has a shot of the house, and we just sit there and look at the house for a while. And then that shot is going to be mirrored later towards the end of the movie as well.
Yeah.
But they use the house a lot to symbolize, I guess I'm just talking about these symbols so much, but they're not subtle.
No.
And I don't think that's a bad thing, like this is heavy-handed, but the movie knows what it's doing, and it's not being particularly subtle about all of that. But they have all these shots of the mansion that can be both sweeping and grand to show you the opulence of it, but then also all these really claustrophobic shots to show you the oppressive nature of it. And depending on who's featured in that shot, that's how the house looks.
Yeah.
So we get to see her, she's hiding right at the beginning in the dumbwaiter, in the smallest place around. So it's most oppressive to her, and then it's going to damage her very symbolic dress as well. And right at the beginning, we have that flashback scene, and the boys are hiding in a closet.
I think so.
Something
yeah,
like that.
I think.
And they're
Daniel locks Alex in a closet,
and they are probably the two that most want to get out and see this as oppressive. While the sister is in these big grand rooms because she's enjoying it. This is her world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just liked how often they would switch the house in a matter of seconds from being grand and opulent and large to oppressive and claustrophobic and dark.
Yeah. And the flashback you get when Grace is running out of the house down the lawn, and like a couple hours earlier she was like having one of the happiest moments of her life, like getting married out there, and then she like shakes it off and continues running, and you see that moment of her being like, oh my god, what's happened tonight. One of the things that I had a problem with in this movie was that no one closed doors.
I remember you saying that, and then the next person
closed the door. No, but I mean, I felt like there were so many times where you enter a room and Grace is trying to hide, and she just leaves the door wide open. And like I feel like if someone was hunting me, literally, I would close as many doors between us as I could, and like make sure that it was like gonna slow them down a little bit. And yeah, I don't know.
I know there are quite a few horror movies that have similar elements of someone being hunted in a big mansion. That's nothing new. But usually if you get a satirical or comedic horror with a beautiful lead and a rich family, it doesn't get as brutal. I like that this movie didn't stay away from that. They're not thinking, well, this is a horror, but, you know, not really a horror movie. Mm-hmm. This went for it. Like, she bashed Andie MacDowell's skull in with a box, and the nail through the hand. Oh. The blood in this movie it's intense. It's intense. As light of a movie as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like light, but it's not a straightforward, always suspenseful, grotesque horror movie. Mm-hmm. It's funny and light in a lot of parts.
Yeah.
And that they still kept the really brutal stuff. I appreciate it, because usually a movie wouldn't want to mix things that are as disparate. And I love that. I think they should go more funny, mm-hmm. more brutal. I like those differing elements being forced together, because that is jarring, and that helps them get their point across, I think. And it worked in this one, because they're saying that, yeah, this is brutal. There's nothing soft and funny about it. We're using that humor to draw attention to the elements and the satirical stuff that we want to talk about privilege and intergenerational privilege and the exploitation that comes mm-hmm. along with that. But they show you that, yeah, it's brutal too. I guess we should talk about the end of the movie. Leading up to that, one thing I did find a little annoying was how they have to keep her in the house. Yeah. In the sense of it's a movie about taking place in this house, and I get that. So then maybe you should have just delayed the lock thing more, but to have her out and in and out and in, and saying, oh, Daniel is not on my side. Okay, this time he is going to help me out. Yeah. And people flip-flopping. And I guess you could say that that's part of his arc. But then when it happens again of Alex can help her out, and like now he's flopped the other way and is bringing her back in, that sometimes feels like a little manipulative and a little like, hey, this is a script and these are the script elements, and mm-hmm. less of these are what those characters would do. Yeah. But that's a small criticism, I think. It wasn't overly unnecessary.
Yeah. I get a little bit different character development would have been good. Because, yeah, there were a few things that were kind of confusing like that.
Then when people explode, what are your thoughts there?
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, up till now, everything was like so big and blown out of proportion. And like, it was just like, it was so satire that them blowing up was just like the cherry on top. Like, I just thought like, it's the best thing that you could have thought of. And I really enjoyed how they did it. I really enjoyed that everyone got covered in everyone else's like implosion goo. And explosion?
Implode would mean they like went in.
Oh, okay. Explosion goo. I think that it's like silly enough that it worked really well at the end of the film.
I'm not entirely sure of what I think. First, I was thinking that I didn't want the curse to be real. Mm-hmm. I wanted them to die because the house burnt down, and it was Grace's doing, or it was accidental or whatever, and then you could say like, oh, I guess the curse was real. Maybe it was, maybe it's just the consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
Because I do like the idea of their fall just being the consequences of their own actions rather than a supernatural force. But I also like the idea that rich families have made a literal deal with the devil.
Yeah.
So I like both of those. I probably would have written something different than people just start exploding one at a time.
Yeah.
If they wanted to go that far with it, I might have gone with one of them tries to kill her and a ridiculous amount of happenstance and coincidence happens that they die instead. Like they fire a bullet and it bounces off 3 things and hits them. And
Right.
you're like, oh, so it's still clearly the curse, but less of people just exploding one at a time. They each died in a kind of a Rube Goldberg mousetrappy type of way.
Right.
I would have written it that way myself, but that's just me. I'm glad that they all died and that Alex was not spared, though.
No, I'm so glad about that.
And he explodes as she throws the wedding ring at him.
Yeah. I liked that. And I enjoyed the exploding. I thought it was kind of funny. And it was just like one more crazy thing that happened to make this like that movie. Does that make any sense? Well, yeah, I think after discussing all of this, I'm still just as happy with this movie and I still really, really like it. Did talking about it ruin it for you?
No. I think the same things now. I feel like if there is a horror movie where there's 2 small things that I would change, that's a
good movie then. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Apparently they're in talks for a sequel.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't really understand what they would do.
I think if you're making a sequel to this movie, don't bring back anyone. And just there's another family and it happens again.
Yeah.
Just that's essentially a remake though, I guess. But I don't like the idea of a sequel. But you know what? I don't know what they're planning on doing with it.
Apparently Samara Weaving says she's in talks to reprise her role. So I don't know what that means. But there is like serious talk about a sequel. I think it would be interesting if by marrying in and surviving, she becomes the head of this cursed family.
Oh, sure.
And then, I don't know, she's like got a family and it all starts again, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like she remarries and has kids and then all of a sudden
she has to
like pay the price. Maybe. I don't know. That's like the only thing that I could see actually working because everybody else is dead. So the curse is technically over.
Yeah. I could see that being an enjoyable movie, but I feel like it would undo a lot of what I liked most about this movie. Because I loved the comedy, I loved the pacing, I loved the performances, the use of the house and the metaphor of that, but I think what I loved most was the metaphor of this elite family and how this movie brings up questions about the lengths that people will go to preserve their status and how this social stratification is ultimately dehumanizing to the point of just not seeing people as people. Because I think that is something so basic and such an issue in the world. And I love that this movie is about how these elite institutions are not built upon harder work or innovation, but rather the exploitation of others. And once they lose the ability to do that, they lose everything. I think that's the best part of this movie, and I worry that a sequel would undermine that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's very few things that they could do with this that would make it as good as the original.
Give me a prequel.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
That'll be good.
Just watch another one of these happening, but it's 1895 or something.
Yeah, when he came over on the ship and he was making.
Oh, maybe not cards. An origin story. I was thinking of the last time this happened. Maybe it's Helene's story, but we know how that one ends. So maybe another one before that.
Right. Yeah.
Because I am kind of tired of. Hey, remember that one cool line in this movie? Let's do a 3-hour movie exploring it all and take all the mystery away.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Do you love Darth Vader? Let's hang out with him when he's 6. Like, I don't care. I don't want that anymore. Well, join us again next week where we are going to talk a little more Simpsons with Treehouse of Horror 2. Maybe we should go watch that right now.
Sure.
And then we will preview the movie that I am choosing for my Spooktober watch. And you know what? I just solidified what we're going to do because the movie we're going to do is going to have similar elements about family, maybe even deals with the devil, and how all of this can be hereditary.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll see you next week when we talk Treehouse of Horror. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Ooh.